Pat Munday, P-A-T-M-U-N-D-A-Y. I'm a professor of technical communication here at Montana Tech and president of the Mai Wah Society.
Okay.
The Mai Wah Society is a 501c3 nonprofit board, and we manage a Chinese history and culture museum in Uptown Butte. We have an extensive collection of archives from the family, from the store itself, all the original merchandise from when it closed up in 1942. Chinese herbals, dried fish, clothing, you name it. It was the Walmart of its day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and we also have a very nice kind of conventional museum exhibit with interpretive signage. I got involved with Mai Wah partly through my interest in Chinese history. I'm a historian, among other things. And from graduate school in the 1980s, I had some very good Chinese friends, and they kept pestering me to come teach in China. So I want to say the first one, I think 6 years ago, I applied for a Fulbright to China, won that award, then went back to China, taught a short course at a partner institution of Montana Tech's, and then won another Fulbright last year and went and taught. So I have a strong interest in Chinese history and culture, but I also have a strong interest in American history, in particular the history of Butte and the contributions of the many diverse ethnic groups that helped build this little city on the frontier. The Mai Wah is one of 20 sites. We had to apply, and we were selected in a fierce national competition, and the National Historic Trust is running this competition, and the winners will take away $150,000 for bricks and mortar work on their buildings. So 20 historic sites nationwide, and Butte, the Mai Wah, was selected as one of them. Well, the nonprofit board are 7 members, but then we also have an advisory board. So the members on the board, range from Kim Tintinger, who is our accountant, to Travis McAdam, who does a lot of our communications and press releases. Shawa Brazil, a Chinese-American woman who helps with translation into all things Chinese. Mary McCormick, who is a specialist in historic architecture. Yeah. The board formed about 1991, and the family transferred ownership of the building and all of the contents about that time. So the building we operate was originally owned by the Chin family, and the Chins came to Butte probably in the 1870s, and we have records of them running businesses here by the 1880s. And then in 1899, they, in cooperation with a franchise that they were working with out of Seattle, built the Mai Wah building, 1899. And then the Chin family did so well on the ground floor mercantile and with the restaurant noodle parlor upstairs that they bought out the franchise and then erected a second, much larger building connected to the first one in 1909. And they operated the restaurant and the noodle parlor and raised 10 kids there. They were a center of Chinatown in Butte, which during its heyday, there were 2,000 or more Chinese here in Butte. raised 10 kids in the building, and had to close up operations in 1942 for two reasons. One, the Japanese had invaded China, so the Chins just couldn't get the merchandise that they needed to sell in the store anymore. But then the critical blow was the four elder Chin boys all went off to war to serve, three in the Army, one in the American Navy. On a different grant that I wrote 2 years ago, we paid $25,000 for a complete engineering and architectural assessment of the building. So we know exactly what work it needs. We have a line item list of how much each fix will cost. And this $150,000 would put on a new roof, completely renovate the skylights, renovate and restore the parapets around the top of the roof, do a lot of work on the windows, also some of the major structural elements like a windowsill of sandstone that goes 24 feet across one of the buildings needs to be replaced, things like that. Serious, kind of bricks and mortar renovation work. Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's all locally contracted stuff. Another grant that Mary and I wrote for about 25,000 is already paying for restoration of some of the windows and the storefront area. But yeah, of course. But it also brings tourists to town. We're open as a tourist destination from June through September, and we do lots of tours outside of those times by appointment. We have a number of cultural activities throughout the year, ranging from kind of small things like tomb sweeping day, traditional day in China where you go and clean off the graves of the ancestors. So we go to the Chinese section of a local cemetery here and clean up and do a little ceremony there. But then our big annual event is the Chinese New Year parade. So each year, and it's a lunar holiday, so it's kind of like the Christian Easter, right? It varies by date from year to year based on the lunar cycle, but usually falls in mid to late February. And we have a marvelous parade dragon, and we lead the parade from the Butte Silverbow Courthouse back down to the Mai Wah, where we then have food and a party for 200 of our closest friends. And what everybody needs to know is how to vote.
Yeah.
So you go to voteyourmainstreet/Butte, and you can cast 5 votes every day. And of course, we encourage everyone to cast their 5 votes every day for Butte and the Mai Wah and the Wah Chung Tai, the 2 connected buildings. And you can vote every day until October 26th. There's some big demographics that we're up against. So among the other 19 sites, we've got San Francisco, Los Angeles, a site close to Houston, Miami, New York. Yeah, so we're up against these demographic areas that draw in, millions of people within a short distance. And we don't even have that many in Montana. So it's a huge challenge for us to mobilize enough votes that we're competitive and we end up in the top, essentially the top 10 for this award. Yeah, so we encourage people to share this on Facebook or Twitter or other social media. and we want it to be viral, and we want millions of votes.